So, got a review of Bttr Hny Pg Brd by Francesca Ecoesi. It is a 2020 novel from a debut novel from Francesca Ecoesi, Nigerian-born, Halifax-based Canadian author. Has Was longlisted for the Giller, was a contestant on Canada Reads. You can filter back in my videos for a whole thing on Canada Reads. 4 books enter, one book wins. Was not this book, but got to know some other really cool books that way. I first heard about it from David at the Poptimist, actually, and I will try and link down below to his gushing. I think it was one of his top reads of 2020. So yes, this is the blurb actually is pretty accurate in this one. It's an intergenerational novel about food, family, and forgiveness, and we'll get back to that blurb at the end. So yeah, Mother Kemberenichi believes that she was born an Obanji, basically a spirit that wasn't supposed to actually be born as a human being, and as a result curses her family to misfortune. And as a result of a trauma that happens to Kendi, one of her twin daughters, that it destroys her relationship with her twin sister, Tai. The family is completely fractured. The 2 daughters go off on their own. Kendi, in particular, just cuts off all communication with the rest of the family, while Tai is kind of obsessively writes her letters, sort of talking to her about her life, about how she is feeling, how she is sort of tormented by her own guilt over the particular trauma. I think we all dance around things. It does get revealed later in the thing. I guess needless, maybe just to say, it is an assault. There's a sexual assault, and the particulars and all that you learn throughout the book, and how corrosive and how terrible this was for this family. So Tai is also a chef. She's a lot of her points. This book is divided into kind of 3-point POVs interweaving throughout the story. Is a chef, and is always like kind of cooking, and that's sort of where she does show her love, her thing. Unfortunately for her, she's lesbian, and not unfortunate, but unfortunately she's not able to make any actual connections relationship wise. She basically just has sex, has all the fun sex stuff, and then the second things get even slightly serious, she is out of there. She is messed up that way. It's not like she's having fun sex and just that's all she wants. It's like, no, she wants a lot more, but unfortunately that's all she is capable of due to her history. So yes, at the opening of this novel, Kendi is flying into Lagos, Nigeria, and is one of Tai's lovers has, thinking that they were doing a good thing, sent that big box of letters that Tai had been writing obsessively to Kendi over the years, has sent it to her, and so she's still reading it as she's arriving in Nigeria, ostensibly to kind of introduce her mother and Tai to her I think it's at this point husband, but that more is coming, and indeed it comes to a head in the present. The cool thing about the novel is, yes, it's divided into the 3 points of view. You get the mother and the 2 daughters. You also kind of jump back and forth in time, back to before, back to the Cabernaci, the mother's childhood, and basically her life is Obanji, and hearing voices. The kin are always there in her head. The novel is not, for the most part, I think, making this it is still a mental health issue. It is a mental health issue. She is not functional. it's definitely framed in this sort of this kind of paradigm, this kind of way of looking at the world. Um, and through that, through the relationship with the father, after the father, and then the daughter's childhood, and also the daughters after they've gone away, Taillis in Provence, learning cooking, Candy, so we get all this kind of mix. It's a really good mix because it's one of those things of like you come into a family setting and you see all these people sitting around and they've obviously got this giant history, but you don't know it. You're like the husband of Kendi in this book. You've got no clue, but because this is a novel, you get to get filled in to all the emotional history that's going on before. So you're completely up to date. And Ekwesi does a really good job of kind of juggling that, so you're never particularly confused. You always know whose head you're in. You always know what time you're in and stuff like that. It's not sometimes with literary novels they really just throw you into the deep end and you're completely lost. I found this very clear that way. Very clear that way. So yeah. I think I think I saw one of the blurbs. It's like, oh, it kind of reminds me of Ametsi Ekwesi's Freshwater. Now that novel, also a Nigerian based or born author. Don't quote me on all this, but it was very much from a character who was sort of like the mother in this book, Kimbernachi, who had multiple voices. That was much more intensely that person's point. That was only that person's point of view, and it was you were deep in that person's head, and it could get confusing, but it was also kind of exhilarating that way. This novel, it's very much all the three women's stories, and I'd probably argue it feels more the daughter's stories than the mother. So if you're kind of coming in for kind of another hit of that, it's not there. Maybe that book also probably was a good primer for me for this book, because I was like, oh, okay, we're getting that again, and I knew what I was going to get. So it wasn't I was like, oh yeah, this is a part of this kind of this world, and I could get it. It's adjacent world to this. And I'd say this book probably has more of a thing of that outside point of view, where you're going like, yeah, this is a lot less functional, where just by the nature of Freshwater being so much inside of that character's head, there was more of an idea of like, oh, this is how I am, and people should just get used to it, and I'm perfectly functional. This is like much more, we're the daughters of a character like that, and it's not so functional, not so great to be the daughters of, and indeed there's a loss of parental. You can argue that there's sort of because the mother suffered so much from a grief, and was kind of knocked back in deep into her head, that she wasn't there for the daughters when they most needed her, and indeed that is one of the things that has to get kind of worked out in this book. This is also, I talked about Taillis' kind of sexual hedonism, but I think this isn't like this is not me being cis semi-straightish white guy saying like, oh, this is I give my stamp of approval, this is a good lesbian novel, but I've noted that it's like, it wasn't one of these things of like, oh, her liking other women wasn't the problem. The problem was that Taillis has extremely good taste in women. It's just that she could not make that connection with the women. That was the issue. So it wasn't, it was, if she'd been a straight person, she probably would have had meaningless sex with guys. She just happened to be a gay person, so she had not meaningless sex with women, but she could only have the physical, the kind of the sensual part of the relationship, but she couldn't have the rest, which was definitely a problem for her. Some people it wouldn't be a problem, that wouldn't be where they would get their emotional connections from, but this was where she was going to get her emotional connections, and she couldn't, and stuff like that. So I want to go back to the blurb for my final little thing here because, yeah, I said it's a intergenerational novel about food, family, and forgiveness, which you can somewhat roll your eyes at. It sounds like, oh, yeah, how heartwarming and stuff like that. Um, and I think without spoilers, I can say that, at the end of this book, it's like not everything is good. It's not like, oh, we're all happy, perfect again, but there's healing that goes on. And there is a certain level of forgiveness, as the blurb spoils. You never know, but it spoils. And I was wondering about that because just probably from a personal connection of like how easy is that forgiveness to give, because I've been in situations like that, and I can say that the forgiveness has not. I haven't been able to access that myself. So do I believe it in this novel? Why isn't this novel as cynical and hard bitten as I am? But I thought about it, and I was thinking about like how much food is actually so important in this novel. Tai shows her love through food. There's kind of history, the history of the culture of the people. It's all this stuff that kind of supports and brings people together. And I think if it wasn't Bttr Hny Pg Brd, if it wasn't that food actually helps heal, helps bring characters together. You share a meal with somebody, you express something, not through language, but through food and through that kind of very primal of taste, of the feeling of nurturing, of giving, basic nutrition, but also, there's an opening scene here where I think it's Tai arrives and she finds her mother gaunt, and the woman who's taking care of her is sort of like, she's made a big pile of stuff, and then she's eating it all, and Tai tastes it, and it's flavorless, and it's like it's got nothing in it, because this is a woman who has been employed to take care of their mother, but she doesn't care about the mother. She's just getting paid. And it's like she fires the woman, she makes up a batch of her own food, and she gives that to her mother, and her mother immediately just starts eating and eating. It's like that connection right at the beginning there is like food is love. That is the real setup for how the novel is going to go. And it's like that at the beginning there, is so important to show you, is so important to kind of give that credibility to the ending of this book and make it a powerful ending, make it a believable ending, even though there's a part of me that still struggles with that. So yeah, that's my review of Bttr Hny Pg Brd by Francesca Ekwesi. Yeah, definitely worth a read. All right, more videos later.